Perfect. All right, perfect. I was gonna say kind of we only have 15 minutes and I really wanted to chit chat more, but I wanted to kind of start off by saying that my daughter and I came up there in 2018, big Braves fans. We came to see Chipper inducted, and it was our first time there, and it was just an amazing experience. I mean, I actually, the hair on my arm just started to stand up a little, but the Hall of Fame was so much more than a Hall of Fame. You see the plaques, and on TV, and that's kind of I think what most people think about it. But all the history, everything that's there, the uniforms, the history of the shop and everything. It's just, the women's baseball exhibits, Hank Aaron so prominently presented there. And I know the what's out kind of rotates, but it really also kind of got me was just the town, like Cooperstown. It's just a beautiful city, and the lake there. And Our favorite place to stop and eat was Sal's across the street. And we just had a great time. But anyhow, enough of my maybe free advertising for coming to Cooperstown. But tell me a little bit, Craig, about your tell us about your position there and what you kind of do on a daily basis.
Sure, I'm the director of communications, so I'm a lot of the language that comes out of the museum comes through me. I spend probably a quarter of any given day working on our magazine, which is called Memories and Dreams. That goes out to our 40,000 or so members. There you go.
There.
That goes out to our membership base 6 times a year. Also working on the yearbook and the almanac and the website and writing press releases. So for a kid who grew up loving baseball, it's truly a dream job.
That is amazing. I have my induction booklet here.
There you
Gosh,
go.
my little virtual background there's messing that up. But yeah, I mean that sounds exciting. As a baseball fan and just a fan of baseball history, American pastime. This is my let's see, which way should I turn? My American hat, Atlanta Braves hat here. But I was looking back before a meeting here at just the history of the Braves, and between it's the oldest consecutive running franchise, and I looked at what Braves are in the Hall of Fame. And it went back to 1871 was the oldest, like first inducted Atlanta Braves slash Boston Bean Eaters slash Boston Red Sox. It's just amazing to me. 150 years ago, if my math is right, hopefully it is. And 53 Braves throughout all the franchises have come up. I think for my age, growing up in the late 80s and the 90s and current, obviously, we've seen our favorites inducted, especially from that amazing 14-year run. You had Sherholtz, Cox, the big three, Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz, Chipper. And to be there during Chipper's speech and everything was just incredible. But I was going to ask you, Craig's, that kind of collective body, and then there's also the question of Andrew Jones, but that collective body of core players, has there been another team or time frame? I'm sure there has, where you kind of saw, these teams that were a dynasty that sent 5, 6 guys to the Hall.
I think you're talking about very, very special dynasties. The Yankees of the 20s and 30s, and then the Yankees of the 40s, and the Yankees of the 50s, and the Dodgers of the 50s, and early into the 60s. It's a very, very exclusive group that have that many Hall of Famers from a given team. And of course, it's special. 14 straight division titles. I mean, when
Yeah.
you think about that, you're just not going to see that ever again. I can't imagine the scenario where that happens. It truly was a special thing. I got to see, got to live through those teams and watch them and what they were able to accomplish and how they did it. and the consistency they showed was just amazing. Bobby Cox and John Schuerholz, if you can be underrated as a Hall of Famer, those two guys are, because when you think about what they did, it truly is amazing.
It is. Bobby Cox, he probably has a little asterisk in there for, you think about what Hall of Fame records will never be broken. Bobby Cox has something like 156 or 160 or so, somewhere around there, ejections as a manager, basically a whole season, especially in today's day and age of baseball. I would confidently say that'll never be eclipsed. Not that that's a record that anybody's trying to eclipse, though. Um, so, to kind of talk about some of the outliers and kind of fringe Braves players that are out there, obviously, very much beloved Braves icon Dale Murphy. The short story, Andruw Jones, very similar. The short story is tremendous for a specific period of time, rather, and then a very quick, decline. And I was looking at the different committees. If Dale Murphy still has a shot, which kind of committee might consider Dale Murphy in the future?
So it would be this fall's committee, which is called the Contemporary Baseball Era. So that's guys whose main contribution to the game came after 1980, basically. And that's where the bulk of Dale's career falls in. So that ballot will be announced in the days following the end of this year's World Series. So whenever the World Series ends, a couple of days later, the ballot will be announced, and then it will be voted on at the winter meetings. So
Oh, wow.
Dale will be eligible for that, no doubt about it. A tremendous player. When I was growing up, Dale Murphy, you knew he was acknowledged as the best player in baseball for a period of time.
Right.
And that's a great thing. I mean, when you can say that, that's an incredible standard. But the thing you got to remember, though, Ray, is that the Hall of Fame, you're talking about the top
Oh, yeah.
1% of players all time. There are 268 former big leaguers in the Hall of Fame. And as of today, there are about 22,700 men who've played at least one inning of Major League Baseball. So you're talking, it's a little more than 1%. The top 1% are in the Hall of Fame. That means if you're in the top 2%, you are better than 97% of the people who've ever played the game, but yet that's not the Hall of Fame standard. And that's why the standard is so great for the Hall of Fame, and Hall of Fame election is the greatest honor in all of sports, because to get there, it's incredible. Now, that being said, Dale Murphy could easily be elected. I mean, I could easily see that scenario. And there are so many guys who you can talk about like that. When you're talking about that kind of standard, then the people who are right on the other side of the line are tremendous players.
Yeah, that's a great point. So if we fast forward a couple months after the Braves win the back-to-back World Series, then Dale Murphy's announcement comes out, and it'll be another great offseason for Atlanta, right?
I think the Mets fans would like a word with you, but yes, absolutely.
Probably. Probably. Yeah, that race is getting tight, and it's exciting to watch for sure. And briefly, Andruw Jones is maybe kind of on that same 2% level. Anything to add about, I was actually, I was thinking with all the, it's almost too bad Andruw Jones wasn't playing now with all the sabermetrics, with all the defensive statistics, with StatCast and all that. But how about his, potential for future consideration?
Well, that's why when you have 10 years on the BBWA ballot, that gives you a 15-year window then, because you have to be retired for 5 years just to get on the ballot. 15 years is a long time, and those metrics have changed, absolutely. And people look at that and say, hey, let's take another look at this guy. And then after the BBWA, your eligibility expires, then you're still eligible forever on what used to be called the Veterans Committee, is now called the Eras Committee ballots. So that gives folks a chance to take a second look at candidates. Andruw Jones was an incredible fielder. And if you ask the guys on that Braves team, they'll all tell you that he was just a superstar by any definition. So again, you look at guys like that, and over time, as they get considered and as these metrics come out, different things happen. And that's why, there's only a handful of guys who've earned first ballot election.
Right.
The vast majority of the electees are elected on a subsequent ballot.
Yeah, and I was, if you think about like the Braves' big three pitchers from that team, certainly without Andrew Jones, they'd have less wins, less saves, maybe less, consecutive championships. But time will tell. I was actually looking fast forward, and when I was, younger and kind of thinking about the Hall of Fame, there seemed to be like a basic baseline, just in my basic understanding at the time. It's like 300 wins as a pitcher, you're in. You know, 400 or plus home runs, maybe you're in. But that, I don't think you can really count those because the game has changed more now. So, I don't know if that 300 win plateau, if that'll come along in any time in the near future. And the 400 home run plateau, maybe that was wrong to begin with, but 500, is it 500 now? Is it, so, just wanted to kind of illustrate how my kind of concept of, what makes a Hall of Famer from a statistical standpoint comes in.
I think those numbers are always changing. And, when you talk about the history of the game and the evolution of the game, that's going to change as well. However, I don't think those numbers are going to go away necessarily. Every time somebody wins 300 games, the narrative is, oh, this is it. We're never going to see it again. I remember when Randy Johnson did it. This is it. We're never going to see this again. Well, it keeps happening. Justin Verlander's about what, 60 away? Now, yeah, Justin Verlander's 39 years old, but it could happen. I mean, that's not out of the question. It's the way he's pitching that it could keep going. I don't think those numbers are gonna fade. But I do think that using the new metrics, people say, hey, it's not maybe all about a specific number. It's about the ratio or what you were doing, when you were playing. So I think all that combined, the voters look at all those aspects. And plus, there's always the eye test. For me, Ray, if as a fan, if I look at a guy, I can probably tell you whether he's a Hall of Famer or not right here by the eye test, just by looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of future Hall of Famers, I looked a couple years into the future. As far as first ballot, I know not first ballot, but Scott Rowland's on there. He's been on there, I think, 6 or 7 years. He had a pretty successful career. But Carlos Beltran, 3,000 hits. That was kind of another one of those plateaus, like 3,000 hits. Okay, you're probably in. Not Carlos Beltran, Adrian Beltre. Yeah, sorry, got those confused. But one that really stuck out in my mind was 2025 Ichiro Suzuki. His, list of accomplishments and pedigree is just amazing.
From making contact with the ball, 262 hits, to hold the all-time single season record, 3,000 total hits. Gold Glove, multiple Gold Glove outfielder, great base stealer. This was an all-around player, and I suspect we will see Ichiro here in 2025. Absolutely, when you look at the body of his work, just incredible. And when you add in his hits in Japanese professional baseball, then you're talking about over 4,000 hits.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I mean, this guy was a hitting machine.
When I was looking at him earlier today, and I saw he had 509 stolen bases, I was surprised. I did not, I think that was maybe a part of his game that, at least for somebody on the East Coast, that was overshadowed by the amount of hits that he was getting. So, but tell me, Craig, I know we just have a couple minutes left. For baseball fans, for Braves fans, you mentioned the Memories and Dreams publication, but how can baseball and Braves fans get involved with what's going on at the Hall of Fame, or how can we get involved there?
A great way to stay in touch with Cooperstown and stay connected to Cooperstown is through Hall of Fame membership. Baseballhall.org/join tells you how to do that, and you get the magazine and you get our yearbook, and you feel like you're supporting the history of baseball. We are a nonprofit organization, Ray. We are not owned or operated by MLB. We support ourselves through our ticket sales and other endeavors. And so this is how we make sure that we are preserving the game. And you, as you've been here, you feel it. You
Yeah,
walk into Cooperstown, it's a special feeling. You feel the pulse of the game. This is where the heartbeat of the game is strongest. And I don't know anybody who's ever visited this village who has not come away feeling that way. If you haven't made it, take a trip to Cooperstown. Induction weekend is obviously a tremendous thing. But I always tell people, you want to come at the perfect time, come Columbus Day weekend. The leaves start changing. It is absolutely beautiful in the fall here in Cooperstown. I love this time of year in central New York. It really is for baseball. It's baseball heaven. And not just baseball, but the history of the game, the history of this country is tied so closely to the game of baseball. If you love American history, you will love Cooperstown and the Hall of Fame, because the Hall of Fame talks about that. Not just the Hall of Famers, like you said, but it's also the museum that talks about the entire history of the game, dating back into the 1870s in professional baseball.
right.
You mentioned that, the Braves are the oldest continual operating franchise. A lot of people don't realize that the players from the 1869 Cincinnati Red Stockings, which are considered the first professional team,
Okay.
most of those players went to play for the Boston team in the National Association that eventually evolves into the Braves.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a direct line to the start of professional baseball from Braves baseball.
That's incredible. Well, Craig, I really appreciate the time. We're excited to share this interview with our viewers via social media, and we'll look forward to hopefully some good Dale Murphy news this fall, and hopefully a lot of us out here will come be able to make it to Cooperstown in the near future.
That's great, Ray. Thanks so much for having us on.
All right, thanks, Craig.